Scott Falater, the sleepwalking man who killed his wife. Scott Falater claimed he drowned his wife Yarmila while sleepwalking. Who was Scott Falater? In 1997, Scott Falater was an engineer who worked at Motorola. He was living in with his wife, Yarmila Falater, and two children, son Michael, 12, and daughter Megan Falater, 15. They were living a truly happy life. According to Michael, his father was a hard-working man and a religious person. He also went to a nearby church to teach religion in the morning. There had never been infidelity, financial difficulties, or abuse in Scott and Yarmila's marriage. Their marriage was characterized by love and understanding. So the discovery that Scott was guilty of his wife's murder sent shockwaves through the community. The 41-year-old Yarmila Falater was found dead in the swimming pool of their home in Phoenix, Arizona. A happy marriage. Scott and Yarmila were happily married for over 20 years. Their relationship was stable and they were living in a safe, quiet community. According to the police, this was not a high-crime area. Religion was always important for the family. According to reports, the only conflict between the couple was that Scott wanted more children, and Yarmila thought he spent too much time on religious activities. These disagreements hardly seem like the kind that would escalate to murder. Their children never saw them arguing over any issue. Day of the murder. It was January 16, 1997. Scott Falater went to teach early morning seminary at 6:15 and drove his daughter to school. Then he left home for work. The Falater family gathered for dinner. After having dinner, Falater went to prepare for his church class. The children went to bed at 9 p.m. After a while, Yarmila came to him and told him to fix the pool filter. The O-ring of the pool filter wasn't working well. He tried to dig it out but wasn't having success. It had been a long day of work for Scott, so he gave up and decided to go to bed. His wife was sleeping on the couch. He woke her up and said that he couldn't fix the pool filter and left her there after saying good night. It was between 10 and 11 p.m. when their neighbor Greg Coons, who lived next door, heard the moaning and crying. Neighbor's testimony. Greg went outside and looked over the wall. The scene that he saw looked like a horror film. He told the police that Scott was stepping toward Yarmila's body, which was lying on the ground. He picked her up on his head and moved toward the pool. For a moment, Greg Coons thought that Yarmila might be drunk, and Scott wanted to wake her up. But that was not the case. Scott threw his wife into the pool and held her head underwater. Greg quickly called 911 and told them the entire situation. During this time, Scott had changed his bloody clothes and put them in the wheel well of his car. Scott used a hunting knife to stab his wife. The crime scene. The police officers told ABC News that when they entered the house, they saw Yarmila's body floating on the surface of the water. They ran toward the pool with little hope that they could save her. As the officer picked her up, the water turned a deep red, and they knew she was gone. Falater had stabbed her 44 times and then threw her body into the pool. After discovering Yarmila's dead body, the officer saw Scott Falater upstairs. The police searched for the children and found them sleeping in their rooms. That was a hard day for Michael and Megan. They slept peacefully through the entire incident, but upon waking up, they found that their mother was dead and their father was her killer. The police arrested Scott and took him to the police station. It was quickly concluded that Yarmila's attacker was her husband, Scott Falater. They supported their theory with witness accounts, bloody clothing, and the murder weapon. I don't remember what happened. I do know one thing: I loved my wife. I've tortured myself 100 times thinking about what Yarmila may have been thinking as she was being attacked by me. She must have found the situation alarming, perplexing, and terrible. Scott Falater's statement to the media. Murderer's reaction. Scott was confused and told the interrogation officer that he couldn't recall anything. When the police told Scott that he killed his wife, he was shocked and said he couldn't remember anything. He loved his wife, how could he do that? Scott kept asking what was going on. When told that his neighbor had seen him killing his wife, he said, "I believe that my neighbor must have seen me doing it, but I never knew it. I was sleepwalking and can't remember doing it." Expert's opinion. Psychologist Rosalind Cartwright, who provided testimony on behalf of the defense, said that sleepwalkers have been known to carry out stupid acts like breaking their own furniture or sticking their own arms through windows. Cartwright was convinced of Scott's innocence. According to her theory, Scott was trying to fix a broken pool pump when Yarmila approached him to ask him about it while he was sleepwalking. She thought Scott had mistaken Yarmila for an attacker and attacked her in response. She further added that during episodes, sleepwalkers are unable to recognize faces. According to the sleepwalking expert, Scott exhibited 65 behaviors during the encounter that were uncommon for a sleepwalker, including: he would have been startled awake by touching the chilly water. The screams of his wife would have roused him. He wouldn't have put his clothes in the back of his car or changed into another set of clothes. He wouldn't have told his dog to keep quiet. Because of this, it took just 8 hours to find him guilty. When Scott was a teenager, his sister Laura claimed that she once tried to shake him during a sleepwalking episode. He reacted by flinging her across the room. Prosecutors' findings. The Falater marriage wasn't all good, the prosecutors argued during the 6-week trial, and Yarmila wasn't wearing her wedding ring when investigators discovered her dead body. John Norman, the case agent who started the interrogation, told ABC News that Scott's story was hogwash. He said there was no bloodstain on his white shirt, but there was some blood on his neck. Norman said in his report that the murderer was confused and slow to respond while he was sleeping. Verdict and sentence. After 2 years of trial, in June 1999, he was found guilty of first-degree murder. One juror remarked that while Scott may have been sleepwalking at the time of the incident, when he dragged the body, I think he woke up and panicked. Several letters, including one from Yarmila's mother, were submitted to the judge when it came time to decide whether Scott should be sentenced to death. Scott was consequently given a life sentence. More than 2 decades later, he continues to insist that he does not remember committing the violent conduct even now. Falater is currently in prison for life without the chance of parole. According to the Arizona Department of Corrections, he is now serving his term at the Yuma Prison Complex Cibola Unit in San Luis. Throughout his imprisonment, Falater has worked a variety of jobs, most frequently as a tutor. Quick facts. Michael Falater said in an interview, "My father can't kill my mother intentionally. He is a very calm person and never argued with my mother in my entire childhood." Scott met Yarmila at high school and fell in love with her. He had never been on a date before. According to Yarmila's friend, she never showed any dissatisfaction regarding her marriage. The chief medical examiner testified that Yarmila had 44 stab wounds, some of which were fatal. Falater's friend and former co-worker named Mark Rohrbaugh thinks that Scott was dreaming of playing the video game Duke Nukem when he murdered his wife.